Hello and welcome to this episode of Tower Thoughts from Rebellious Resources. I am your host, Raina. Today is August 23rd, 2026, and we're finally in Virgo season, something that thrills my Virgo rising heart. I love this time of year. I love Virgo energy, and it tends to be one of my most productive times of year. Because the sun is now moving across my rising into my first house, this always feels a little bit more like a solar return than my actual solar return does sometimes. And historically, this has always been a time for me to uh, start planning the year ahead, think about what has been working in the year, kind of do a little recap, a little audit, um, and see what I want the rest of the year to be like. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Before we get to all of the goodness of Virgo, um, if you're new here, like I said, my name is Raina. My company is Rebellious Resources, and we are disrupting money culture. What is money culture, you ask? So glad. Um, it's basic. Pick up any newspaper, scroll through any social media feed, and money culture is what you see going absolutely bananas right now, where there are a few people at the top with all of the control, all of the power, all of the resources, and everyone else is kind of scrambling underneath. Um, Historically, societies don't do well when they reach this tipping point. Something breaks one way or the other, and we're definitely at that point. But our goal is to disrupt that culture of money as a tool for power and abuse. Um, Teach you how to better recognize your resources, take control of them, build your financial literacy, build your empowerment, understand how society, through laws and practices, has historically excluded a large part of the citizenry, and that how the work it has taken to get to where we are now, where we have more legal protections and rights legalized than at any other point in time in recorded history, at least here in America. And there is certainly a push to roll that back. And yeah, no, hard pass. So anyway, you can find us Rebellious Resources on all platforms. That's our website. We have a Patreon community and now building up here on YouTube. So Tower Thoughts is just a space for me to come on and share my love of economics, history, astrology, politics, current events. Um, I don't have a lane, and I don't plan on picking one. So if you're cool with that, great, you're in the right space. If you're not, then there's a whole, Al Gore has a whole interwebs for you that you can go explore. So today's focus, like I said, we are now in Virgo season, one of my favorite seasons. Um, and as I was putting together the workshop for our Patreon solar season workshop forecast that we do every month on Patreon, I noticed something really interesting about the Virgo astrology. So, um, if you're new to astrology, um, basically everyone has a birth chart. And when you were born, your birth chart really are all of the cars gonna go by, right? Oh my God. It was quiet. It was quiet. I don't know why all of the loud cars are now going by, but I digress. When you were born, Your birth chart would be a chart that could be cast at the exact moment of your birth, based on the place you were born, and that would show that's a little snapshot of where all of the planets are in the sky and calculated points like your rising, your midheaven, where they are in the sky at that particular moment and how it's broken down into houses. And that all can show what the energy of you is. And then as you continue to live on, the planets will continue to transit that and they will talk to that natal chart. Those are called transits. Um, and the same can be said for countries, for businesses, for events, and for astrological seasons. And so that is what I work a lot with is mundane astrology, overlaying astrology both currently and historically over events, looking at eras, how they've changed, how that energy has influenced. Are we coming into that same energy again? What did it look like when it was here before? Do we like how it worked out? Cool. Do we want to maybe make some changes? Well, now is our time to come in and, with a little older, a little wiser, and perhaps change how we work with that energy. So, Virgo, a little bit about it is an earth sign. In Western astrology, we work with four elements. That's air, fire, earth, and water. Virgo is an earth sign. Earth signs are known for being practical, grounded, a little bit serious. Our other earth signs are Taurus and Capricorn, but they each have their own flavor and expression. So, Virgo is also a mutable sign. Mutable is the sign of change. And you think about we are changing seasons. It rules the sixth house, which is our house of work, health, daily life, routines. Um, and it is notorious for having a great attention to detail, for planning. Their backup plans have backup plans. Um, they have an affinity for efficiency, and efficiency does not mean just do it the fastest or cheapest way possible. In fact, they hate that. They love when things work well, and Virgos get a reputation for being critical because they have the ability to look at something and really hone in on what is missing? What is being misused? What is redundant? What is just not working? And they can see how to make it better. And if you're smart, you'll listen to that Virgo. If you're not, then be prepared to hear the I told you so because they did tell you so. Ask me how I know. So anyway, now we're in that season and it is really a great time um, to declutter, to detox, to delete anything or anyone that is like not 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 working anymore. Um, and by not working, I mean energetically not working in your life. We are not going to beat down on people who are struggling with employment. Don't I know this is Al Gore's internet, but please don't misconstrue my words. So what I thought was really interesting about this particular Virgo season, like I said, each season has its own chart. And when I do the solar season workshops on Patreon, we look at the chart that for that particular season and talk about where the planets are, how they're having conversations. Are they getting along? Are they arguing? Are they having to yell at one another all the way on the other side of the chart? Those, okay, weird sounds today. Um, And how that chart plays out gives us an idea of how the energy of that season is going to play out. And so, like I said, when I was putting this one together, I noticed something really interesting. So let's go look at those charts. Okay, hold on. Okay, so here is the chart for Virgo season. She actually moved in late last night. And as you can see, she's a little messy. She's a little chaotic. Virgo is not afraid of chaos. They're really good at finding the order and streamlining that. So Leo left us a little bit of a mess, kind of rude, but that's how Leo rolls. Leo, you know who you are. Especially with Jupiter in your sign, you're just gonna make a big old mess. But Virgo is used to cleaning up everyone's mess. They're gonna tell you all about it. So the first thing that I noticed on this particular chart is right here, the ascendant. We have a 0-degree Taurus ascendant that you're new to astrology. Each sign um, has 30 degrees. So it goes from 0 degrees and 0 minutes to 29 degrees, 59 minutes. And something at a 0 degree is a critical degree. It's newness, it's brand new, it's starting, it's pay attention, there's big work ahead. Same thing, something at 29 degrees is also a critical degree. It's an anaretic degree. It's the degree of crisis and decay. Things are falling apart as the sign prepares to change itself. So our ascendant is at 0 degrees of Taurus, which, as I mentioned, is a fellow Earth sign. So here we have our sun at 0 degrees Virgo in the fifth house. Right over here is our 0 degree ascendant, which starts the first house. It is very much seen as the flavor of the chart. And Taurus is all about our resources. It is about values, money, um, your personal finances. It is a fixed sign, so it's determined. It's going to dig in and do the work. Might not be the fastest thing, but it is committed. But here's what I notice. Right conjunct that ascendant is Chiron. Now, Chiron is oftentimes called the wounded healer. I still don't know that I am on board with that name. It, you know, you can delve deeper into mythology if you want, but what Chiron represents in astrology is a wound that we are being tasked with healing. It is a placement that can offer great power, great potential, great growth if we are able to work with it. For example, those we are in just entering Chiron and Taurus, and like I said, Taurus is about money, relationships. So these next 7 years of our time with Chiron and Taurus will be a lot about money wounds, a lot about our values. How do we as individuals, as a society, as a nation, um, address those wounds, address those pains? Now, when I see Chiron conjunct the ascendant, that is also telling me that this season is perhaps going to be rocky. There are a few ways this can play out, and it may play out all of these ways or none of these ways. One, this is a really good time for us to look at those wounds. Where are our values not aligned? Where are we not living in alignment with our values? Where is our money not in alignment with our values? Our relationships, where are our relationships not aligned with our values, or where are they based on money? Those are things I think we have to look at. Are we making those decisions, those relationships out of fear? Fear that we won't have enough resources, a scarcity mindset, money wounds. Those are all things that could really be coming up. And when you look at the price of groceries, when you look at, these are all earth signs, food. Taurus loves food, and literally everything in our grocery store, um, that you can or can't afford is in some way trying to dirt nap us right now. The other thing that could be signified by this is that something during this Virgo season will cause tremendous pain to our resources, to our values. One of the things I am looking at is what has just happened with World Liberty Financial, the crypto crap, now being made a national trust bank. That is not okay. Not going to get too deep into that right now, but that is Taurus rules banking. Crypto is completely unregulated. So just know that when something that is unregulated is given the full faith and trust of the US Treasury, that's not a good relationship. Anyway, I don't know what's going to happen this season. But those are ways that it could play out. And Taurus is ruled by Venus, so she is over here in Libra, which is a great space for her. She rules Libra. She's happy. She's at home. She also rules Taurus. She's doing the most. But she is coincidentally in the sixth house, which is traditionally ruled by Virgo. So she is going to have a lot to say about fairness, justice, balance, peace, diplomacy in our daily lives, in our routines. But she's also in opposition to Saturn, and Saturn is hanging out with the wrong crowd. Saturn has been hanging out with Neptune for a while. Saturn is usually about our uh discipline, our structure, our boundaries. Neptune is the complete opposite. Neptune is a watery asshole. Um Neptune is all about illusions, delusions, fraud, scams, cults, illness, deception. Neptune is a freaking menace to society. And unfortunately, Saturn and Neptune have been hanging out for a while. They've been pretty close to one another. And they're both retrograde now, but they are they are not yeah, Neptune is a bad influence. So Saturn in Aries in opposition to Venus, we can see this in a lot of ways. This could be really asking us, because it's retrograde, it's in that 12th house of self-undoing. We could really be tasked to take a good hard look at either how we are not being disciplined, if we are being too constrictive, if we are being too aggressive, especially in matters of women, of peace, of diplomacy. I mean, yeah, a lot of stuff is going on. And I think this can be an uncomfortable month, but a very powerful month. And that is because right here, and I don't know if you can see it, I did go into all of these aspects much more on our Virgo resource forecast, which you can buy the replay on our Patreon if you want. But we have what's called a kite here. So if you see, we have the sun, which is conjunct the south node, opposite the north node, and then we have a mini grand trine here with our ascendant and Chiron, and the moon over here. The moon in mundane astrology is the luminary of the people, our emotions, the sentiment of the citizenry. And a mini grand trine, there's a lot of ease and flow. I do feel like this is really calling us to task as we see more and more of our resources being plundered, disappeared, stolen, destroyed. Look what's happening to our national parks. Look what is happening to the wild mustangs being disappeared at the exact same time that this beef is now being imported from a country that won't be named. Taurus is the bull. Um, so we're gonna let you think about that, whatever you want to think about it. And what is at the bottom of this is the sun. In mundane astrology, the sun represents the leader. And sitting right on that south node, the south node is it serves a couple functions. It can be the cosmic drain. It's what we're being asked to release. It is also the our default setting, the things we come into this life with that are easiest for us. Um, and it's also the planet of identity. So depending on how we're looking at the sun's function in this, if we're looking at it from a mundane astrology aspect and looking at it from how this will play out for we the people, um, we are trying to move forward, and that sun is kind of dragging us down. But I think if we lean into our collective emotions, if we are willing to face the pain we have around our resources and say, no, 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 this is this is not what we value, then we can move forward. What happens to that sun? I don't know. I'm surprised that sun is still rising. But that's another matter. And it's I think it has the power. We also have between the sun down here in Virgo, our Chiron and ascendant here, and then the moon in the early degrees of Capricorn, we have a grand earth trine. There is a lot of practical, decisive energy around this season. We have midterms coming up. I think people are motivated not simply just to get out and protest, like, okay, we're so fucking far past the point of protest. We need to work. We need to like, who's working the polls? Who's going to be a poll observer? Who's going to help people get to and from the polls? Help your community, people that need help with registering, people that need help with transportation, people that might need help with childcare that day. This season really lends itself to the energy of getting shit done. Good shit done for the collective, by the collective, reclaiming democracy. What exactly type of government do you want to have? Capricorn is the sign of government. And with the moon there, I think people are perhaps finally, some people, finally starting to pull their head out of their ass and think, whoa, 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 okay, um, we're fucked if we don't get it together. So that's the energy of what I think this Virgo season is bringing. But when I was putting this together, um, I one of the things that I also do for our workshops is I look at, so like I said, we have four elements and there are three modalities. There's your cardinal modality, which is the seasons that start Your fixed energy, which is the middle, it's your dig in and do the work, and then your mutable, which is the sign of change. Um, and so I always break down how many placements we have in each of our elements and our modalities at the start of the season, at the end of the season, so we can look at how um, things will change, what the energy overall looks like, and then also where we are on retrogrades. How many are retrograde? How many of our planets are retrograde at the beginning and end of our seasons? Um, so getting ahead, gonna skip, whoops. Okay, you know what? I don't think so. This is uh actually no, let me go back. This is our chart for Gemini season, which began back in May. And it looks very different, but still pretty darn chaotic. And we had a Sagittarius ascendant there. Sagittarius is ruled by Jupiter. Jupiter at the time was in Cancer. It has now moved into Leo. But what I noticed in amidst all this chaos is we had two yods forming here. And if you're not familiar, a yod is an isosceles triangle with a common point and a sextile base. So we have one where the apex is at that Sagittarius ascendant. And if you look, we have the Venus at one end of the base and Mars at the other. Venus and Mars can't get more oppositional than that. And that is bisected by this big old trio here of Mercury, Uranus, and the Sun. A lot of energy. And you think back to where we were early in the summer, around Memorial Day, early to mid-June. It's pretty chaotic. Um, but like I said, there are two yods. So Venus is doing double duty. She is at the base of that first yod, but she is also at the apex of the second one. And that one has the ascendant and Pluto at the base. So putting these two yods together that cross over one another, we have our ascendant, Venus, Mars, and Pluto, all involved. These are big energies. Mars rules police, um, aggression, military. We know that there were a lot of actions going on in the Strait of Hormuz and a lot of blockade actions going on. Ships being disabled, blockades is an act of war. Doesn't matter whether you say it's a ceasefire or not, it's an act of war. And Pluto is all about transformation, plutocracy, power, money, how money is used. So these, there was a lot of chaos then, but it felt like when I did this presentation, I called it Flaming Arrows Cross the Sky because that's what it felt like. It felt like there were these two arrows shooting at one another, which you could kind of say that blockade was exactly what's going on. Um, but when I broke down, here we go, and just to see the two charts over here, a lot of the energy or a decent amount of the planets in Gemini were below the horizon. We were really kind of dealing with them, and they weren't perhaps visible. And now we have many more that are above the horizon. I do feel like what we started working on in Gemini season is now being seen a little bit more clearly. And whether we were conscious we were working on it, whether it was, um, things we were becoming aware of, having to take a deeper look at, having to do more internal work with. Now it is all kind of coming out into the open. But getting back to this is how our array of elements and modalities and retrogrades looked for Gemini season. And you know, there wasn't a huge amount of change, but we ended up at the end of Gemini season as we moved into Cancer. We had three planets in fire, three planets in air, one in earth that had not changed, and two in water. So this was a much more fire air. Air feeds the flames. There was not a lot of grounding. There was a very parched energy to this season. When it comes to modalities, we had four in cardinal. There was a lot of starting, even though it was a mutable season. A lot of things were getting started, and there was a decent amount of fixed energy. Like it's not just starting. There's momentum here. And we ended up with two mutable, but only one planet was in retrograde. And so there was mostly forward motion. And I had described that as summer swelter. Humid air fans the flames ever higher with little keeping us grounded. Folks are quick to start, stubborn to the core, and reluctant to change. A frustrating and volatile stalemate persists. And like now in retrospect, this is something I wrote, early May. Now in retrospect, knowing what we know about the Strait of Hormuz and how things are playing out in the Persian Gulf, how they are now getting exacerbated in the Black Sea with Russia and Ukraine, how we are still seeing challenges in the Red Sea and the Bab el-Mandab, cheers, with the Houthis, if you know, you know, um, that stalemate concept kind of uh, makes sense. When did the same layout for Virgo season, look at the bottom line. Virgo season is what we have on the bottom. We ended up with three planets in fire, three in air, one in earth, two in water, four in cardinal, three in fixed, two in mutable. The only difference is that now we have more planets that are retrograde. So at the start of Virgo season, we have our outer planets, Pluto, Neptune, and our social planet Saturn are all retrograde. And on September 10th, Uranus will join them. So that is big outer planet energy. I know some folks feel like, oh, well, the slower moving outer planets go retrograde a lot. We don't need to pay attention to it. I disagree. I disagree. They may not impact us personally the way a Mercury retrograde would. Mercury is retrograde at least three times a year. It's very fast moving. It impacts our communications, our travel, our technology. But I don't think we can dismiss the retrograde actions of the outer planets because those have a strong influence on the energies around us, on our governments, on business, on economies, um, um, natural natural disasters, natural like large weather patterns. We're in typhoon season, and yet there are areas of the Caribbean and Latin America that are in a severe drought. So they paint with a broad brush, but that paint gets everywhere. So I do think we feel them, we pay attention to them, we are part of them. They do impact us just in a slightly different way than a planet like a Mars retrograde, a Mercury retrograde, or a Venus retrograde, are personal planets that are really going to, get into the nitty-gritty of our daily lives. Um, and by the way, Venus is going to be going retrograde. She enters her pre-shadow on August 18th. Excuse me, August 31st. Um, and she'll station retrograde on October 3rd. So between, all of September, really pay attention to what's coming up around your money, your finances, your looks. Um, because we're going to go over that same territory again when she stations retrograde, and then again when she stations direct. I'll talk more about Venus retrograde in an upcoming video. But these are, to me, energies that are asking us to say, okay, look, you had the whole summer to do whatever you're doing. We're kind of giving you a redo on those influences, those energies. The charts are different. They have different placements, but we're also talking about two mutable seasons. What do you want to change? What is up for reconsideration, reflection, revision? Um, and what do you need to, Taurus, what do you need to really get serious about if you want a government, a functioning government, a democracy, if you want all of these things, if you want safe food, if you want protected um, national parks, if you want protected wild mustangs, if you want to not have glass in your popsicles, if you want to not have if you want to have lettuce that isn't going to dirt nap you, what do you, the people, need to get off your ass and do? It's a long list, but this is what happens when you take these things for granted, when a government works so well. And yes, our government has problems. Every government has problems. Yes, our nation's history has big problems. I talk a lot about those. So if you're new to me, you might not be aware of that, but that is the foundation of what I talk about. This is an and, not an or. We can acknowledge all of those things and say, how do we, the people, here and now, want to not only respect the work that has been done to move legal protections along, to put up barriers to bullshit things like poll taxes and literacy tests and all of these impediments to participation that folks have literally given their lives for. How do we honor and respect their work and recognize there is still so much more work for us to do to make this a more perfect union? It will never be a perfect union. There is no such thing. My idea of a perfect union might be different from your idea, might be different from neighbor down the street, but there are many things that we can agree on, that we can unite and work for. One of them, safe food. Um, Functioning democracy, our resources protected. Yes, that includes our currency, that includes the US Treasury, that includes our financial system. And yes, I know I talk about disrupting money culture. Right now, the reality is money is the access point to the things we want and need. But what is considered money and how we are allowed to access those wants and needs can always change. And let me tell you, it is changing right now. We do not have control of that. It is being changed by people who want all of the control. So I thought this was interesting, and that's why I wanted to highlight it. Like I said, if we go back, there's a lot to delve into. If you want to know a little bit more about the energy of Virgo season, I do, like I said, have the replay available on our Patreon. Um, and this was our chart for Gemini. You know, some of the things that really stood out to me were just how close the Sun and Uranus were. Uranus had just entered Gemini, and this is a planet that Uranus. I have I actually really love Uranus as a planet, as an energy. It is innovation, chaos. It is that eureka thought, like, brilliant idea. It is also rebellion, resistance, revolution. It does things its own way. It does not care if you like it or dislike it, but it can also be subterfuge. It can be disorder, chaos, strikes. It is the planet of resistance. And I love that, but that same energy can become harmful. With Uranus in Gemini, Gemini is all about communication. I am really associating this planet in Gemini, it as an expression of the technocrat broligarchy, as that surveillance culture, AI, all of these elements that monitor our communications, that Gemini is all about duality. There is a dual purpose. Sure, we can use these cameras to catch criminals, and they can also monitor who's going to what doctor appointment. Are you seeing a lawyer? Are you meeting with a journalist? There is a duality to everything. And it is very, very important that we look at that clearly. Um, so that is, let's see, hold on. Da, da. Okay, so that I thought was really interesting to bring up and discuss a little bit and just keep in mind. And you know what? I just realized there is one more slide I want to show. So hold on. See, this is what happens when I record on a Sunday night because I'm kind of tired and go away, go away, get out of my way. Um, kind of tired. And yeah, kind of tired. So I forget things. But this is what I wanted to go ahead and do a quick comparison of. I just wrote down a few of the stories, the big stories that were going on the end of May and early June compared to where we are now. And wanted to do a little side-by-side comparison. So one, we had the Ebola outbreak in the Democratic Republic of Congo and that big hantavirus outbreak on the MV Hondius, that cruise ship. At the same time, there was an outbreak of Mpox in Thailand and Taiwan, and we also saw avian flu start up in Norway. I don't think either one of those ever got big, but they were making an appearance. And this is Neptune doing entirely too much. See, this is what happens when Neptune and Saturn hang out. They Neptune is a bad influence, and this is what we get. We also had that huge California chemical tank that forced 40,000 people to evacuate. That was the methacrylate that was, they were having to shoot water on it to try and cool it down because there was a chance that it could explode. I don't know if you remember that. At the same time in Washington, there was a 900,000 gallon tank. Now, I don't think it was filled all the way, but that was the capacity of the tank that ruptured and killed 11 people, unfortunately. That was filled with something called white liquor. It's used in paper making. It's highly corrosive, very, very dangerous chemical. And I don't know that it's ever been released. What I don't know if they've even finished the investigation as to what happened and why it ruptured like that. But these were two really big chemical events going on. Still looking at you, Neptune. Also, we had California wildfires that forced thousands to evacuate. The Strait of Hormuz was virtually closed, and ceasefire was the la jour. If you recall, that was when they said, "Oh, we're in a ceasefire. It's no longer a military action. We beat that 60-day we need congressional approval bullshit." Yeah, bullshit. Because there's still a blockade. Blockades are act of war. This is still an active military zone. This was also when the USS Gerald Ford left the Persian Gulf, leaving the USS Abraham Lincoln there, which that's been in the news. Canada had announced they wanted to seek a new partnership with US, recognizing that the relationship had changed, but they were trying to make the best of it. And also, Gemini season was the last time we saw Mitch Yertle the Turtle McConnell in public. Um, where are we now? Are there any changes, any consistency? Well, the that Ebola outbreak is now the worst in DRC history. They have been able to develop a vaccine that is getting rolled out there. I don't know how effective it is going to be, but that is still ongoing. It is very, very deadly. And unfortunately, um, I think it has been really hard to contain. Measles cases here in the US are now the highest they've been in 35 years. So much winning. So much winning. Like I said, the groceries are trying to literally dirt nap us, whether it's salmonella or listeria or cyclosporiasis. There's what E. coli. Was it E. coli in frozen blueberries? And then the glass and the popsicles. Uh, I don't know. I think there are about 40 active recalls right now. That 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 feels problematic. Like I said, the Houthis are back. Bab el-Mandeb, cheers. So that is another very vital transportation passage that is being restricted. The US debt just topped $40 trillion. Remember I said Chiron in Taurus, conjunct that ascendant? Yeah, this feels very Chiron and Taurus conjunct the ascendant. Um, Let me tell you who is going to pay for that debt. We are. We are. And I feel like this should be its own video too, but a very similar situation happened in Russia a couple decades ago. It did not end well for the Russian people. Um, People had their pensions wiped out. They had their savings accounts wiped out. They had their bank accounts wiped out. They lost their homes. They lost a lot. If you think it can't fucking happen here, it is fucking happening here. Maybe, just maybe, people will be angry enough when it reaches their front door. I don't know. Yeah, so about that new partnership, well, we've pissed off Canada again. The trade talks collapsed, and now we're back to tariffs, reciprocal tariffs, because they are 50% tariffs are set to go into place on Canadian goods, and they will apply those same tariffs to US goods. There are still plenty of wildfires in both the US and Canada. We've got 119 active ones. Canada has 198. Like I said, there are areas experiencing extreme drought, and that also has an impact on shipping, on the supply chain, on how goods and services are being moved around the planet. The Panama Canal is running lower because the lake that supplies it is experiencing a drought. So there are fewer transits going through the Panama Canal. The Danube and the Rhine over in Europe, which are both, yes, they're rivers that are scenic, they're used for cruises, but they are also major waterways for moving cargo around Europe. They are also the lowest they have been in a very, very long time, and that is impacting what transits can get through. Gary freaking Indiana has been without power for over 10 days here in the US. Over 10 days. They had really bad storms move through, and um, there has been no good explanation as to why the the some power that something has not been restored to them. You can guess, or I'll let you guess, the racial predominance of Gary, Indiana. It's very similar to Flint, Michigan, if that helps. Um, and really, where the entire actual ever-loving fuck is Mitch McConnell? Is because he seems to be on eternity leave now. I don't believe we're ever going to see him, you know, in the in the corporeal again. Um, I this is, we're not even getting the bad AI proof of life photos anymore. Which again, Neptune, you're just doing too damn much. Illusions, delusions, fraud, scams. Like, if we were gonna get rid of one planet in the entire solar system, I would petition for it to be Neptune. I will take Pluto, I will take Saturn, I will take Mars. I know they get bad reps, but I can work with them. Neptune is just an asshole. So that is where we are. And we have, like I said, just started Virgo season. So I have no idea what is going to be in store. But what I would tell you to watch for, pay very close attention to, election season, especially your local elections. Your local elections matter so freaking much. Even if you don't have kids who are in school, pay attention to who's running the school board because they're going to make decisions about what books those kids are reading, what kind of education they're getting, and you're going to have to deal with that kid when they're working at the grocery store, they're working at wherever. They're gonna go out into society. They will become your problem. So I would pay attention to that. I would pay a lot more attention to this debt and the treasury bonds. And I feel like I said that needs to be its own video. I feel like Chiron and Taurus, I'm kind of working on something for that. But also we are going to be getting into the point of um, budget renewal again through Congress. I haven't actually checked in to see where things are. Um, but historically, that has become really problematic. So I would pay attention to those things and pay attention to individually on a community sense and collectively as a society, where are our values? Are we operating out of fear or are we operating out of belief? Um, they're two very different things, but sometimes they overlap. And I think a lot of our values are going to become critical this season. So, anyway. Okay. Yeah, there we go. So that is That's tonight's episode of Tower Thoughts. I hope you found it interesting. I hope that you learned a little something. If you would like to learn more with us, like I said, we have a Patreon community. I offer monthly classes. You can find them on our website, rebelliousresources.com. And um, there's always something to learn. I try to bring the subject of money into discussion and into an education from the standpoint of it doesn't need to be complicated, it doesn't need to be serious, it doesn't need to be dry, boring, overwhelming. It can be very relatable. So, and actually, if you're a small business owner, we are kicking off a three-part workshop. You don't need to register for all three parts, but they are designed to work together. A three-part workshop on business financial literacy starting on August 31st. So you can find all the information on our website. And over on Patreon, we've also kicked off it's free, a 30-day challenge for Virgo season called Cosmic Cleanout, where we are taking a much closer look at all of our resources, what needs to go, who needs to go, and how can we just tidy up our lives emotionally, financially, physically, mentally, all of those things. So it'd be great to have you join us there. So again, thank you so much for joining me. My name is Raina. This has been Tower Thoughts from Rebellious Resources, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode.